Anderson here, your host. Once again, I'm going to be flying solo tonight because Leslie Schneider has had something arise and she's unable to make it tonight. So you're stuck with me. So we're going to keep this relatively short tonight, cut to the chase, short and sweet, quick and dirty. Uh, uh, well, it's going to be quick, maybe not so dirty, but hopefully you'll be ready for a whole lot of fun this evening as usual, even though we'll be relatively short. I'll just kind of give you the highlights of kind of the key events that have arisen over the last couple of days. And the first one, and I've already put this in the chat, so you can take a look at that right now, and that is with regard to the LA mayoral race. So, to no one's surprise, once again, we have massive cheating that's occurred. So, the second place spot is no longer going to be secured by Spencer Pratt. His race, his run as a Republican candidate has pretty much been ended. The Democrat candidate in second position, Nithya Raman, has come back a week after the election polls were closed to win the election. Now, if you're wondering if this is some kind of a miraculous comeback, then that would be a good thing to wonder. She entered the race at the last minute, had a terrible performance at the debate, had no visible block of support, no yard signs, no bumper stickers, no rallies, no campaigning. And she was still able to come back because she was able to secure like 100% of the mail in ballots. I think about this for a minute. Like none of the mail in ballots went to the Republican candidate, 100% of them went to her. And here's the thing that even makes it more crazy: the leading candidate, she didn't hardly get any of the mail in ballots either. So you're looking at one of these things where it's just basically statistically impossible that it would happen this way. But once again, the Democrat Party, she's like mad and they pull one off. Now, on the one hand, this can be incredibly depressing if you look at this in the short term, but if you look at it in the long term, the whole nation has been able to watch this. The whole nation's been able to observe this. And this is just something that over time is eventually going to be changed. You got this win here today, but I don't think this is going to continue down the road. And here's yet another one, moving right along to a second example of LA vote scamming. And this gives you more of an insight in terms of how they do it. So, just a second, I'm going to highlight this article and put it in the chat line so that you could read it. Because this gives an example, if you're wondering like how they do it, this is an example of the how. So, here's a woman who's accused, this past Monday, of paying homeless people on LA's Skid Row to register to vote. According to her plea agreement, and her woman's name is Brenda Lee Brown, she had a side hustle as a petition circulator, which basically meant that she was paid by individuals and entities called coordinators to collect voter signatures on petitions for ballot initiatives, reforms, referendums, and recalls. After gathering the signatures, she turned in the petitions, and the coordinators paid her a set amount for each voter's signature. Then she, of course, eventually had a brainstorm. She could make a lot more money if she went to homeless camps in Skid Row and offered the locals cigarettes and a few bucks to fill out registration forms to sign her petition. Whenever homeless people lacking mailing addresses, which was often, she told them to put down her personal home address, which also meant that all their mail-in ballots went to her house. So clearly, this is a violation of the law. We will see where this prosecution goes, but I'm sure it'll go a long ways towards putting a stop to this game that the NGOs, have been playing to destroy our election process. Um, Yet another one, and this is interesting. Supreme Court ruling today. A ruling from for the RNC would effectively outlaw the whole late arriving ballot tranche in federal elections in 14 states and Washington, D.C. So that if that goes the right direction, it would effectively end the possibility of cheating by waiting for election day to see how many votes you need to win, and then magically producing those votes after the in-person balloting is finished. That has been a key strategy for the Democrat Party to rig elections in these blue states. So that may be coming down to be yet another way to put a stop to the rigging of elections. And then there was another decision that was due. And I don't think as of this conversation that it's happened. Watson versus the Republican National Committee. And this is a Mississippi case about whether the Constitution permits ballots received after Election Day to be counted. regardless of when they were postmarked. If the Supreme Court issues its opinion later this month, and we expect that it will land just in time to affect the midterm election. So more good news on the fairness in elections perspective from at least a federal perspective. And then last but not least on this issue, the president signed an executive order directive ordering the post office to create rules that require states to mail ballots only in barcoded official election mail envelopes and to give the Postal Service voter by voter lists for anyone who will vote by mail in federal elections. So basically, what that will do is modernize the process and give voters a way to track their ballots online just to make sure that these things are being fairly counted. So there are a number of things going on that will certainly help long term to ensure that this process doesn't continue to be so to lack integrity, if you will. Then here's some good news. I'm going to just highlight this and put it in as well. Trump RX prescription drug discount program has been expanding, and now there's over 800 medications available on that list, which is huge news because the amount of discounts that will occur on this and the percentages of the prescriptions that are available is just going to be awesome. We're looking at now 80% of all prescriptions filled can be acquired through Trump RX. The website so far has been estimated to saved over $400 million of patients that are on it. The site offers discounts on prescription drugs of 400, 500, and even 600% on some drugs. And the list is still expanding. Of course, the regular media is not going to promote it. So this is going to largely have to be promoted on conservative sites and conservative podcasts or programs like this so that people can take advantage of it. But that's going to be a huge win for people and a nice reminder of what direction they ought to vote come this fall or this November. And related to that is the most favored nation drug pricing policy. If you recall, that's the program where companies in this country can't offer prices for drugs that are less overseas than they are here. And that's been going on forever. And it's so great to finally see that change. And so far that's been generating that program, an additional $64 billion in federal and state savings over the next 10 years. And I'll post that for your reading convenience as well. So that'll be right down there. Yeah, feel free to hop in with any comments that you might have, because I'm flying solo, so it's always helpful to hear from you all or read what you're saying as I go along. Vaccine world scandal, and I'm not sure, medical ethics. I'm not sure if these two words belong together in the same sentence anymore, given what we've been exposed to over the last 5 years. But this is from the, we'll pass on that one. New York Times. Here you go. And this is from the New York Times, and I'll post this one. This is a suit, and it's just unbelievable. This lawsuit stated that Black infants were subjected to experimental vaccines without their consent. Now, once upon a time, I would have said that's shocking or surprising, but I don't think any one of those words applies to anything anymore. Here's the story. Back in May, two families sued the federal government over vaccines given to their children back in 1966. Back then, the NIH launched a program to develop a vaccine for respiratory, I'll never pronounce it right, RSV virus. They sent experimental vaccine prototypes to local government health clinics where doctors administered them to infants and newborns. There were two infants just a few months old when they got the experimental jabs in Washington, D.C., when RSV season came around in January of 67. Both kids, one 14 months old and the other 16 months old, caught the virus, and within a couple of hours of being hospitalized, both of them died. There were 31 kids who received this lot, and which were studied and later developed for RSV vaccines. The family's lawsuit claims they were never consented to any of this, never got credit or compensation. It's just incredible this kind of thing has happened and goes on in this country. And this is the thing that makes it even uglier. None of the NIH bureaucrats experimented with this lot on their own kids, so this vaccine on their own kids, par for the course. And then related to that, and if it's possible for something to be uglier, this actually is. We got this report on Chinese organ harvesting, and I'm going to cut and paste this one for you all to take a look at as well. This was a book where a researcher took a look at Chinese organ harvesting, and the book is entitled Kill to Order, and you can already guess just how bad this is. So basically, what's happening is China has an organ harvesting industry where wealthy people basically go on a wait list. Let's say that you can't get the organ you're waiting for. I don't know, a heart transplant, liver transplant, whatever it is. Uh, the Chinese government can magically provide you with that for a small fee. And so you can only imagine the moral quandary that puts a lot of people in. In Canada, for example, where what do you call it? Where assisted suicide is basically not only legal but encouraged. Around 7% of all donors are now suicide patients. Think about the pressures associated with that. If you just out yourself or off yourself quicker, then somebody else can benefit from receiving your organ, particularly if that's someone. And if you're on an organ waiting list, generally speaking, you only have a limited amount of time anyway. So that will put time pressure on them to harvest these organs even faster. And of course, this is the sick part. The healthier the patient, the better the condition of the organ. There's been a lot of questions around whether they're even waiting for these patients to actually die. So we call it the dead donor rule. And this applies to what goes on in cancer. Are they actually waiting for these people to die? There's been a lot of accusations of them taking organs from patients while they're still alive. Um, it's certainly been done before historically. It'd be a hard time thinking that a communist government wouldn't do that sort of thing. Heck, it's a hard time thinking any government wouldn't do that sort of thing. But this is probably what's happening. So you have transplant tours paying high prices for quick procedures. Um, you can only guess what's probably going on there. So one more thing to keep an eye on. So that pretty much concludes this evening's programming. Like I mentioned at the top of the hour, relatively short, but pretty good and quick. And I thought there's some information here that you'd like to know and could benefit from. You all have a good evening. Until next week, when hopefully my better half